On a snowy morning in Manhattan, a powerful, wealthy woman on her way to close a billion-dollar deal noticed a man standing silently in the cold, shielding his little daughter from the storm, and when the child looked up, smiled, and blew her a kiss through the car window, something inside her cracked. What she did next would change all of their lives. So before we continue, tell us where you're watching from, and don't forget to subscribe, because tomorrow's story is even more unforgettable. The snow had been falling steadily all morning, blanketing the streets of Manhattan in a hushed white silence that muted the usual chaos of the city. Flakes drifted down like tiny frozen stars, settling on windshields and pedestrian shoulders with gentle insistence. Inside a sleek black town car, Victoria Sterling sat motionless in the back seat, eyes trained on her tablet, reviewing the final numbers for a pharmaceutical acquisition deal in Geneva. She was supposed to be on a flight in less than 2 hours. Every detail had been timed down to the minute. Nothing in her life ever slipped through the cracks. Victoria was not the kind of woman who entertained distractions. At 57, she had built her biotech empire from the ground up, never married, never had children, and never missed a shareholder meeting. She maintained her physical health with the same discipline she applied to business: daily yoga, regular medical checkups, a strict regimen that kept her stronger and more energetic than many women 20 years younger. Efficiency was more than a preference, it was her identity. And emotions? Emotions were like static on a clear radio signal, something to be filtered out. As the car slowed to a stop at a red light on 46th and Lexington, Victoria glanced out the tinted window. People were rushing along the sidewalks, bundled in heavy coats and scarves, heads down against the swirling snow. But one figure stood out, not because he moved, but because he did not. A young man in his early 30s, by the look of him, stood motionless in the falling snow with a child pressed tightly to his chest. He had no umbrella, only an old oversized coat wrapped around both himself and the little girl in his arms. The fabric was soaked through. His hair clung to his face, and the sleeves of his coat dangled from thin but strong arms that held the weight with determination. His posture was straight despite the cold, despite the exhaustion visible in the lines of his face. He was not begging, he was not asking for help. He simply stood waiting for the light to change, shielding his child with quiet, fierce resolve. The child, nearly 4 years old, peeked out from under the collar of the coat. Her face was round and soft, and despite the snow clinging to her short curls, her eyes were wide with curiosity. She looked directly at Victoria's car, no hesitation, no fear, and as their eyes met through the glass, she smiled and lifted her tiny hand, pressing it against the window with a playful tap. Then, without warning, she puckered her lips and blew her a kiss through the glass. Victoria blinked, caught off guard. Something inside her flinched, something faint and unrecognizable. Her fingers slipped, and in that split second, her coffee cup tipped. The hot liquid spilled onto the front of her gray wool suit, staining the fabric and scalding her thigh. "Damn it," she muttered, brushing at the fabric. The driver looked up in the rearview mirror. "Everything all right, Miss Sterling?" Victoria did not answer immediately. Her eyes had returned to the man and child. The father had not noticed the spilled coffee. He was too focused on keeping his daughter's head covered, shifting the coat around the child with movements that were careful and deliberate. His own face was tired, lips tight from cold, or perhaps hunger. But he stood tall. Not once did he look around for help. Not once did he extend a hand for money. He simply stood, protecting his child with everything he had. "Stop the car," Victoria said suddenly. The driver hesitated. "Ma'am, pull over." As the car eased toward the curb, Victoria rolled down the rear window. Cold wind and snow blew in immediately. She leaned slightly out and called toward the sidewalk. "Hey." The man turned slowly, eyes immediately wary. His grip on the child instinctively tightened, and he took a half step back. Victoria could see the calculation in his eyes, assessing threat, measuring distance to escape, protecting his daughter first. "I am not trying to scare you," Victoria said, her voice calm but firm. "You and your daughter need somewhere dry." The man's jaw tightened. "We are fine." His voice was firm despite the tremor from cold. "Thank you." He started to turn away. "Wait," Victoria said. The child, still curious, peeked out again and waved her little fingers. Victoria glanced at the key fob in her hand. For reasons she could not quite explain, she unlocked it from the chain, reached out the window, and extended it toward him. "This is to my house. There is food, heat, a safe place for tonight. Just tonight, no strings attached. The man stared at the key like it was a trap. I do not take handouts from strangers. It is not a handout, it is shelter. For one night, then you go wherever you need to go. But your daughter, Victoria looked at the little girl, whose lips were turning blue from the cold. She deserves one warm night. The man's face tightened with conflict. Pride warred with reality. Victoria could see it, the same battle she had watched play out in boardrooms, the moment when people had to choose between ego and survival. Why would you do this? He asked, his voice rough. Victoria hesitated. Because that little girl just blew me a kiss in a snowstorm, and it reminded me that people still do kind things for no reason. This is me doing a kind thing, that is all. The man looked down at his daughter, who was shivering despite his best efforts. Something in his expression cracked. One night, he said finally, stepping forward, and tomorrow I leave. I do not want complications. Agreed, Victoria said. He took the key from her outstretched hand, his fingers cold and calloused against hers. Daniel, he said quietly. My name is Daniel Murphy, and this is Grace. Victoria gave a short nod. I am Victoria Sterling. The address is on the key fob. There is food in the refrigerator. Help yourself. She did not offer more. She did not ask where he came from, what happened, or what brought him to this corner in the snow. That was not part of the exchange. She simply rolled up the window, tapped the driver's shoulder, and gestured forward. The car pulled away from the curb. As the vehicle merged back into traffic, Victoria turned her attention back to the window. She did not look at her coffee-soaked suit, or the ruined schedule for the morning. Her mind kept returning to the image of that man's face, not defeated, not broken, but fighting. Still fighting. In the front seat, the driver glanced again in the mirror. You sure about that, ma'am? Victoria responded without taking her eyes off the window. No, not at all. Back on the sidewalk, Daniel stood for a long moment, staring at the key in his hand. Every instinct screamed that this was too good to be true. Rich people did not just give homeless men keys to their houses. There was always a catch, always a price. Grace looked up at him with innocent eyes and whispered, Daddy, I am cold. That decided it. Daniel adjusted Grace in his arms, pulled the coat tighter, and memorized the address on the key fob. The mansion was in the Upper East Side. They had a long walk ahead. Are we going to the nice lady's house? Grace asked. Just for tonight, baby. Daniel said firmly. Just to get warm and dry. Then tomorrow we figure out our next move. Okay, Daddy. As they walked through the falling snow, Daniel made a mental inventory. He had $18 in his pocket. A storage unit across town, with their few belongings, clothes, Grace's books, and most importantly, his laptop and external hard drives, containing years of research and code. That laptop represented everything he had been, everything he could still become. Senior software engineer, AI research specialist, the man who had developed breakthrough machine learning algorithms for predictive healthcare diagnostics. The man who had been systematically destroyed by Richard Garrett. Daniel's jaw clenched at the thought. He pushed it away. Right now, Grace needed warmth. Everything else could wait. The key in his hand was cold metal. Daniel did not let himself think of it as hope. Hope was dangerous. This was just shelter. One night, then back to survival. He had been surviving for 3 years and 9 months. He could survive one more day. And that was how the most unexpected part of Victoria Sterling's life began. Not with a deal, not with a press release, not with a plan carefully laid out by her executive team, but with a little girl who blew a kiss in the snow, and a father who refused to let the world break him. The moment Daniel stepped through the front door of Victoria Sterling's mansion, every muscle in his body went on high alert. The house was enormous, intimidating. The kind of place where men like him did not belong. He stood frozen in the entryway, clutching Grace close to his chest, soaked coat dripping onto the glossy marble tiles. His eyes scanned the space with practiced efficiency, exits, security cameras, valuable items. Not because he planned to take anything, but because he needed to know the environment, needed to understand what he was walking into. The air inside was crisp and clean, faintly scented with cedar. Recessed lighting warmed the pale walls, and then Daniel noticed something that made his engineer's brain immediately engage. The security panel by the door was an older model, not integrated with modern smart home systems. The thermostat visible down the hall was manual, not programmable. Through a doorway he glimpsed what looked like a home office with equipment that had to be at least 7 years old. For a house this size owned by someone clearly wealthy, the technology infrastructure was shockingly outdated. His fingers itched with the urge to fix things. He pushed the impulse down. Not his house, not his problem. Grace squirmed in his arms. "Daddy, can I get down?" "Shoes off first, baby." Daniel quickly removed their wet footwear, lining them up neatly by the door. Grace ran down the hallway in her damp socks, her laughter echoing through the space. "Grace, careful," Daniel called out. "We are guests here, do not touch anything." He followed her through the house, taking mental notes. Kitchen well equipped, but the appliances were not networked. Living room, beautiful furniture, no smart TV. Study, he glimpsed outdated computers and tangled cables. Daniel found the guest bedroom Victoria had mentioned. It was modest by this house's standards but larger than anywhere he had lived in years. Clean bed, attached bathroom, thick towels. He did not let himself relax. "Daddy, I am hungry," Grace said. Daniel went to the kitchen and opened the refrigerator carefully. Well stocked with fresh food, he took out bread, cheese and butter, simple items that would be easy to replace. He made Grace a sandwich, cataloging everything he used in his mental ledger. He would find a way to pay this back. Somehow, after Grace ate, Daniel bathed her in the guest bathroom. The water was gloriously hot. Grace giggled as he scrubbed days of accumulated grime from her skin. "This is the best bath ever, Daddy. Enjoy it while it lasts, baby. Tomorrow we are back to the shelter." "Do we have to?" Daniel's chest tightened. "Yes, this is not our home." Once Grace was asleep in the guest bed, Daniel did not allow himself to rest. He could not sleep in a stranger's house, could not let his guard down. Instead he pulled out his laptop, his most precious possession, protected in a waterproof case, and sat in the guest room, back against the wall where he could see the door. He opened his files, code he had written years ago, research that had been stolen from him, documentation of everything Richard Garrett had taken. Daniel had been carrying this laptop for nearly 4 years, through shelters and streets, never selling it no matter how desperate he became. Because this laptop contained proof, evidence, the truth. He reviewed the code again, looking for any detail he might have missed, any angle he had not considered in his fight to reclaim what was his. Around midnight, exhaustion finally caught up with him. Daniel closed the laptop, lay down on the floor beside Grace's bed using his coat as a pillow, and allowed himself to sleep. But sleep did not come easily. His mind raced with possibilities and dangers. What did Victoria Sterling really want? Why had she helped them? What would she expect in return? Daniel had learned the hard way that kindness always came with a price. He just had to figure out what that price was before it destroyed him again. The next morning, Daniel woke early. 5:30, his internal clock still set to shelter schedules. He showered quickly, dressed in the cleanest clothes he had, and checked on Grace. Still sleeping peacefully, he went to the kitchen and made breakfast, simple oatmeal with fruit he portioned carefully from the refrigerator. When Grace woke up he fed her, cleaned up meticulously and prepared to leave. But as he was gathering their belongings, he paused in Victoria's study. The technology setup was worse than he had initially thought. Not just outdated, actively vulnerable. The Wi-Fi router had default passwords, the network was unsecured. The computers were running operating systems that were no longer supported with security updates. Daniel stood in the doorway, staring at the disaster, his professional instincts screaming. Anyone with basic hacking skills could access this network, could steal data, could compromise everything. If Victoria ran a biotech company, she had intellectual property worth millions. Research data, financial information, all of it exposed. Daniel checked his watch. 7:15. He had planned to be gone by 8. He looked at the vulnerable systems, then at his laptop, then back at the door where Grace was waiting. He should leave. This was not his problem, but he could not walk away from a system this broken. "Grace, baby, come here." Grace appeared in the doorway. "Are we leaving?" "Not yet. Daddy needs to do something first. Can you color quietly for a little while?" "Okay, Daddy." Daniel set Grace up with paper and crayons in the study where he could watch her. Then he opened his laptop and got to work. He did not access any private files, did not install anything permanent. He simply closed the most critical security vulnerabilities, changed default passwords to something secure, updated firmware where possible, set up basic encryption. It took him 3 hours. When he finished, his hands were shaking from adrenaline and the knowledge of what he had just done. He had accessed Victoria Sterling's home network without permission. If she found out, she could call the police, accuse him of hacking, he could go to jail, but he could not leave her systems that exposed. Daniel shut down his laptop, cleaned up any evidence of his presence, and took Grace's hand. "Okay, baby. Now we go." They walked to the front door. Daniel left the key on the entry table with a note written on the back of Grace's coloring page. "Thank you for your kindness. I used your shower and some food. I have made a list of everything I used. When I am back on my feet, I will repay you. Daniel Murphy." He opened the door to leave, and found Victoria Sterling standing on the front step, key in hand, clearly just arriving home from her trip. They stared at each other. "You are still here," Victoria said. "We were just leaving," Daniel replied, his heart pounding. Victoria looked at him, then at Grace, who waved shyly, then back at Daniel. "Come inside," she said. "We need to talk." Daniel's stomach dropped. This was it. She had discovered what he had done. The police were probably on their way. "Miss Sterling, I can explain. Inside. Please." Daniel had no choice. He followed her back into the house. Grace holding his hand tightly, Victoria led them to the kitchen. She poured herself coffee, offered Daniel some, which he declined with shaking hands. "I have security cameras," Victoria said calmly. "I watched you arrive yesterday. I watched you make food for your daughter. I watched you clean meticulously. And I watched you spend 3 hours in my study this morning." Daniel's throat went dry. "I can explain. I did not access any of your personal files. I just saw that your network security was terrible," Victoria finished. "I know. My IT consultant has been telling me that for 2 years. I kept putting it off." She sipped her coffee. "What did you do?" Daniel swallowed hard. "I closed the most critical vulnerabilities, changed default passwords, updated firmware, set up basic encryption. Nothing invasive, nothing permanent. Just emergency triage for a system that was actively dangerous." "And why would you do that?" "Because I could not leave knowing anyone with basic skills could hack into your home network. If you run a biotech company, you have valuable data. I could not walk away from that." Victoria studied him for a long moment. "Do you have technical skills?" Daniel hesitated, then nodded. "I was a software engineer, AI specialist. Before things went wrong." "What happened?" "I would rather not talk about it." Victoria set down her coffee cup. "Daniel, I am going to be direct with you. I just watched you spend 3 hours securing my network without being asked, without expecting payment, simply because you saw a problem and could not walk away from it. That tells me 2 things. 1. You have serious technical skills. 2. You have integrity." She pulled out her phone. "I am going to make a call. While I do, I want you to stay here. Do not leave yet. Miss Sterling, please. Just give me 10 minutes." Victoria left the kitchen. Daniel sat with Grace, his mind racing. Was she calling the police? Her lawyers? 10 minutes later Victoria returned. "I just spoke with my head of IT. I described what you did to my home network. He said it would have cost me $15,000 to hire a firm to do the same work. He also said whoever did it knew exactly what they were doing." Victoria sat down across from Daniel. "I am not going to call the police. I am going to make you an offer instead." "What kind of offer?" "Stay here, for 1 week, as my guest. During that week, I want you to do a complete assessment of my home technology infrastructure. Document everything. Tell me what needs to be fixed and why. At the end of the week, I will pay you $5,000 for a comprehensive report." Daniel stared at her. "You want to pay me to assess your home network?" "Yes. Consider it a trial project. If your work is good, we will discuss additional opportunities. Why would you do this? Victoria smiled slightly. Because 3 hours ago, I watched a homeless man with a 4-year-old daughter spend his limited time and energy securing my network instead of leaving to find shelter for the next night. That is either stupidity or character. I am betting on character. She extended her hand. 1 week. $5,000, comprehensive technology assessment. Do we have a deal? Daniel looked at her hand, then at Grace, who was watching him hopefully. This could be a trap, could be a setup, could end badly, but it was also a chance. A real chance. He shook her hand. Deal. But I have conditions. I am listening. I pay for any food we use. I clean up after ourselves. And at the end of the week, if you are not satisfied with my work, I walk away with no hard feelings. I do not want charity. Agreed, though I am going to insist on providing meals. You cannot work effectively if you are hungry. Daniel nodded slowly. 1 week. 1 week. Victoria confirmed. And just like that, Daniel Murphy's life took a turn he had not seen coming. For the first time in nearly 4 years, someone was betting on him. He would make damn sure it paid off. The week turned into 2 weeks. Then 3. Then a month. Daniel's technology assessment was thorough and professional. He documented every vulnerability, every outdated system, every security risk in Victoria's home infrastructure. The report he delivered was 53 pages long, with detailed recommendations, cost estimates, and implementation timelines. Victoria read it in one sitting. Then she called him to her study. This is exceptional work, she said. Thorough, clear, actionable. My IT team says your recommendations are exactly what they have been trying to get me to approve for years. Thank you. How would you feel about implementing these recommendations? Not just documenting them, actually doing the work. Daniel hesitated. That would take months. I know. Which is why I am offering you a 3-month contract. $20,000 per month. You handle the complete technology upgrade for my home, and you consult on security for my company's systems. Miss Sterling, that is $60,000. I am aware. Is that acceptable? Daniel's hands trembled. $60,000, more money than he had seen in 4 years combined. Why are you doing this? He asked quietly. Because you are talented. Because I need help. And because I believe in investing in people who prove themselves. Victoria leaned forward. But I am not doing this out of charity, Daniel. I genuinely need your skills. My company handles sensitive biotech research. If we are compromised, we lose millions. You have already proven you can identify and fix vulnerabilities. I want to hire you properly. I have not worked in corporate tech for 4 years. Your skills have not atrophied. Your report proves that. And frankly, I think adversity has made you better. You think like someone who understands risk because you have lived it. Daniel looked at Grace, who was coloring in the living room. $60,000. A stable place to live for 3 months. Time to rebuild. I need to know something first. Daniel said. Did you have me investigated? Victoria did not flinch. Yes. Basic background check. Public records only. I saw your education credentials, MIT, Stanford. I saw your previous employment at Prometheus Analytics. I saw the lawsuit you filed against Richard Garrett for intellectual property theft. And I saw that the suit was dismissed due to lack of funds for legal representation. Daniel's jaw tightened. So you know I am damaged goods. No, I know you are someone who was robbed and then punished for trying to get justice. That is not the same thing. Garrett destroyed my reputation. No one in tech will hire me. I am someone in tech. And I am hiring you. Daniel met her eyes. What if I fail? What if I cannot deliver? Then we end the contract early and part ways professionally. But Daniel, I do not think you will fail. I think you are angry, hungry, and determined to prove yourself. Those are exactly the qualities I want. She slid a contract across the desk. 3 months, $60,000 total, paid monthly. Clear deliverables, Professional terms. Read it. Think about it. But I need an answer by tomorrow. Daniel took the contract home to the guest room that had become his temporary sanctuary. He read every word 3 times. The terms were fair, generous, even, clear deliverables, reasonable expectations, and a clause that made his breath catch. Consultant retains all intellectual property rights to any proprietary methodologies developed during the contract period. Victoria was not trying to own him. She was protecting his work. That night, after Grace was asleep, Daniel made a decision. He signed the contract. The next morning he handed it to Victoria. I accept, but I want to be clear about something. Yes, I am going to work harder than anyone you have ever hired. I am going to deliver more than you expect. Because this is not just a job for me. This is my chance to prove that Richard Garrett did not destroy me, that I am still worth something. Victoria smiled. I am counting on it. Over the next month, Daniel transformed Victoria's home infrastructure. He replaced every outdated device, installed a state-of-the-art security system with encrypted communications, set up a proper network architecture with segmented access levels, implemented automated backups, created a secure remote access system for Victoria's company files. He worked 12 to 14 hours a day, but never neglected Grace. Every morning he made her breakfast. Every evening he read her stories before bed. On weekends they explored Central Park together. Grace thrived in the stability. She laughed more, slept better, started drawing pictures of our house. Daniel tried not to let that phrase lodge too deeply in his heart. Victoria, meanwhile, was learning things about Daniel that impressed her. He was meticulous, detail-oriented. He documented everything. When he made mistakes he acknowledged them immediately and fixed them. He was also brilliant. She watched him troubleshoot a complex network issue that her company's IT team had been struggling with for weeks. He solved it in 45 minutes. How did you do that? Victoria asked. I thought like someone trying to attack the system instead of someone trying to defend it. Changed my perspective. That is a valuable skill. Daniel shrugged. When you have been attacked you learn to think like your enemies. Victoria heard the pain in that statement. Tell me about Richard Garrett. Daniel's expression closed off. I would rather not. Fair enough. But Daniel, if we are going to work together long term, I need to understand what happened. Because eventually it will come up, and I want to hear your version. Daniel was quiet for a long moment. Then he spoke. I developed an AI algorithm for predictive healthcare diagnostics, breakthrough work, revolutionary accuracy. I spent 18 months on it, documented everything in private repositories. Richard Garrett was my supervisor. I trusted him. Daniel's voice went flat. He asked me to send him my documentation so he could present it to the executive team. I did. 3 weeks later I was fired for alleged code theft. 2 months after that, Garrett filed patents for my algorithm under his name. You tried to fight it. I hired a lawyer, filed objections. But Garrett had money and connections. He hired investigators who dug up every mistake I ever made. They found my college drunk and disorderly arrest, my defaulted student loans. They painted me as unstable and dishonest. My lawyer dropped my case when I could not pay him anymore. Daniel's hands clenched. My fiancée Jessica was pregnant. When she found out I was fired and being sued, she left. She gave birth to Grace and handed her to me at the hospital. I never saw her again. Victoria felt something cold settle in her chest. Garrett stole your work and destroyed your life. Yes, and he is worth $200 million because of it. While I was sleeping in shelters with my daughter. Do you still have the original code, the documentation, every line, time-stamped, cryptographically verified, on my laptop and backed up in multiple locations? Victoria leaned back in her chair thinking. The statute of limitations on fraud is generally 6 years. You could still sue. With what money? What lawyer would take my case now? Mine would, if I asked him to. Daniel looked up sharply. Why would you do that? Because I hate thieves. And because if your algorithm is as good as you say, I want it for Sterling Biotech. But I want it legally, with proper attribution, with your name on the patents. She pulled out her phone. I am going to call my general counsel. I want you to walk him through everything. If there is a case, we pursue it. Aggressively. Miss Sterling. This is not charity, Daniel. This is business. If your algorithm works, it is worth hundreds of millions. I want Sterling Biotech to develop it. But I want it done right. With you as the credited inventor. Are you willing to fight? Daniel met her eyes. After 4 years of defeat, of running, of hiding from his past, he felt something fierce and hot burn in his chest. Yes, I am ready to fight. Good. Then let us destroy Richard Garrett properly. Victoria made the call. Within a week Daniel was meeting with Sterling Biotech's legal team. Within 2 weeks they had built a preliminary case. The evidence was strong. Daniel's time-stamped repositories, his graduate thesis showing the foundational work, testimony from MIT professors who remembered his research, and one more thing Victoria's investigators uncovered: Richard Garrett could not code. He had an undergraduate degree in business administration, no technical training, no programming experience. The algorithm he claimed to have invented required PhD-level mathematics and computer science expertise he demonstrably did not have. We can win this, Victoria's lead attorney said. But it will take time, 18 months minimum until trial, and Garrett will fight back hard. He will try to destroy Daniel's credibility again. Daniel listened to the lawyer lay out the timeline. 18 months depositions, discovery, character assassination. I am ready, he said firmly. Victoria looked at him. Are you sure? This will be brutal. I have been living in brutality for 4 years. At least this time I am fighting back. Then we move forward. Victoria turned to her attorney. File the lawsuit, and make it loud. I want every tech publication in the country talking about this. The lawsuit was filed 3 days later. The headline in TechCrunch: Former Prometheus Analytics engineer sues CEO for patent theft, alleging systematic fraud. Richard Garrett's response came within hours. A press statement claiming Daniel was a disgruntled former employee seeking a payday. The battle had begun. And Daniel Murphy, for the first time in 4 years, felt like he was finally fighting on equal footing. As the first month turned into the second, something else was happening that neither Daniel nor Victoria had anticipated. They were becoming family. Grace started calling Victoria Grandma Tori. Victoria did not correct her. Victoria started coming home earlier to have dinner with Daniel and Grace. She taught Grace to play chess. She listened to Daniel talk about his work. She offered advice on parenting that she had no qualification to give, but that somehow still helped. And Daniel slowly, carefully, began to let his guard down. One evening, after Grace was asleep, Victoria found Daniel on the balcony, looking out at the city. You have been here 2 months, she said. How are you feeling? Terrified, Daniel admitted. Every day I wake up thinking this will be the day it all falls apart, that you will realize I am not worth the investment, that something will go wrong. That is trauma talking, not reality. How do you know? Because I built a billion-dollar company from nothing. I know what real failure looks like. And Daniel, you are not failing. You are succeeding, spectacularly. She stood beside him. Your work on our security infrastructure has been exceptional. Our CTO wants to hire you full-time. And the lawsuit is progressing well. You are winning. I do not feel like I am winning. Because you have spent 4 years losing. It takes time to remember how to win. Daniel was quiet for a moment. Can I ask you something? Of course. Why are you really doing this? The job, the lawsuit, letting us live here. What do you get out of this? Victoria considered the question seriously. Honestly, I am 57 years old. I have more money than I could spend in 3 lifetimes. I have built an empire, but I come home to an empty house every night. I eat dinner alone. I have no family. She looked at him. You and Grace gave me something I did not know I was missing. Purpose beyond profit, connection. I wake up now and look forward to the day because there are people waiting for me when I come home.
We are not your responsibility. No, you are my choice. And that is better. Daniel felt something shift in his chest. I have never had someone choose me before. Not like this. Then get used to it, because I am choosing you every day, and I am betting on you to keep proving me right. She went back inside, leaving Daniel alone with his thoughts. For the first time since Jessica had walked away, since Richard Garrett had destroyed him, since he had found himself homeless with an infant daughter, Daniel allowed himself to believe something dangerous, that maybe, just maybe, he could have a future, that maybe he could win, and that maybe this strange, brilliant, prickly woman who had given him a key in the snow had given him something far more valuable, a second chance. The 3-month contract turned into 6 months. Daniel's work at Sterling Biotech had expanded beyond security consulting. Victoria's chief technology officer James Rodriguez had pulled him into a project that had been stalled for 2 years, developing an AI-powered diagnostic tool for early disease detection. We have been trying to build this for ages, James explained during their first meeting, but we cannot get the accuracy rates high enough. The algorithm keeps producing false positives. Daniel reviewed their code for 3 days. Then he came back with his assessment. You are using the wrong architecture entirely, he said, pulling up his laptop in the conference room. You are trying to force a supervised learning model onto an unsupervised problem. Disease progression is not linear, it is chaotic. You need neural networks that can identify patterns in chaos. Dr. Sarah Kim, the lead medical researcher, crossed her arms. We have tried neural networks. The results were worse. Because you used standard neural networks, you need recursive architecture with adaptive weighting. He projected his screen. This is an approach I developed 4 years ago. It uses meta-pattern recognition instead of specific pattern matching. For disease progression, you do not predict what will happen. You predict the probability space of what could happen. The room went quiet as the team studied his code. This is the Garrett algorithm, one of the junior engineers said, from Prometheus Analytics. No, Daniel said, his voice hard. This is the Murphy algorithm. Garrett stole it from me and filed patents under his name. But I wrote every line, and I can prove it. He pulled up his original repositories, time-stamped and verified. This is my work from 2019 through 2021. Everything Garrett claimed to invent, I created, and I am about to take it back. James looked at Victoria, who nodded. Daniel is correct. We have a lawsuit in progress, and we have verified that this is his original work. He is the legitimate inventor. Dr. Kim studied the code more carefully. Can you rebuild this? Here, for our project. I can do better. Daniel said. I can improve it. 4 years of hindsight has shown me where the original design had weaknesses. I know how to fix them now. How long would it take? Give me 3 months. Victoria made a decision. You have 3 months. Dr. Kim, give Daniel everything he needs. Full access to our medical database, properly anonymized. James, assign him a team. And Daniel, I want weekly progress reports. You will have them. Over the next 3 months, Daniel worked like a man possessed. He rebuilt the algorithm from memory, improving the architecture with lessons learned from years of bitter reflection. He integrated it with Sterling Biotech's patient data. He ran thousands of simulations. The results were extraordinary. By month 5 of his contract, the algorithm was predicting disease progression with 83% accuracy, 15 percentage points, better than the industry standard. By month 6 he had pushed it to 87%. The medical team was astounded. This is revolutionary, Dr. Kim said, reviewing the latest test results. We can identify at-risk patients months before symptoms appear. We can start interventions early. This will save thousands of lives. Victoria called Daniel into her office. I am promoting you, Chief Technology Officer, full-time position, $150,000 salary, 20% equity stake in the AI division. Daniel stared at her. That is more than I ever made at Prometheus. You are worth more than you ever were at Prometheus. You have matured. You understand risk, you think strategically, and you just delivered a product that is going to generate hundreds of millions in revenue. I accept, but I have conditions. Victoria smiled. You always do. What are they? Flexible hours. I need to be able to pick up Grace from school, to be there for her. Success does not mean anything if I lose my daughter in the process. Agreed. Family first, always. And I want my name on the patents, as lead inventor, not just a contributor. Already drafted that way. The Murphy-Stirling diagnostic algorithm. Your name comes first. Daniel felt tears prick his eyes. Thank you. Do not thank me. You earned this, every bit of it. As Daniel's professional life rebuilt itself, his personal life was transforming as well.
Grace had enrolled in a prestigious private school, paid for by Daniel's new salary. She was thriving, making friends, excelling academically, participating in art classes. Daniel had moved from the guest room to a proper suite in Victoria's mansion. He had insisted on paying rent. Victoria had agreed to a nominal amount that was far below market rate but satisfied Daniel's need to contribute. He had also started therapy. Victoria had gently suggested it after watching him wake up from nightmares 3 nights in a row. You have been through trauma, she said. You need professional help processing it. That is not weakness. That is wisdom. Dr. Patricia Morrison, the therapist, helped Daniel understand that his hypervigilance, his difficulty trusting, his constant expectation of disaster, these were all symptoms of complex trauma. You spent 4 years in survival mode, she explained. Your brain learned that safety was temporary and disaster was inevitable. Now you are safe, but your brain has not caught up yet. How do I fix that? Time, consistency, proof that safety can last, and processing the grief and anger you have been carrying. The anger was the hardest part. Daniel had spent 4 years suppressing his rage at Richard Garrett. Now as the lawsuit progressed, as depositions began, as evidence mounted, that anger was surfacing. I want to destroy him, Daniel admitted in one session. Not just win the lawsuit, I want him to lose everything the way I did. That is understandable. He took everything from you. Is it wrong to want revenge? Dr. Morrison considered this. Revenge is wanting someone to suffer. Justice is wanting someone to be held accountable. There is a difference. Which do you want? Daniel thought about it. I want him held accountable. I want the truth on record. I want my reputation restored. If that makes him suffer, fine. But I do not need him destroyed. I just need him stopped. That is justice. And that is healthy. The distinction helped. Daniel was not seeking revenge. He was seeking truth. And the truth was coming out. Victoria's legal team had done exceptional work. They had interviewed former Prometheus Analytics employees who confirmed that Garrett had no technical skills. They had obtained internal emails showing Garrett taking credit for Daniel's work. They had expert witnesses ready to testify that Garrett could not have written the algorithm he claimed to have invented. The case was strong, maybe even unbeatable. But Richard Garrett was not going down quietly. In month 7, Garrett's attorneys launched a counteroffensive. They filed motions claiming Daniel had stolen proprietary information when he left Prometheus. They subpoenaed his laptop. They demanded access to all his code repositories. Victoria's legal team fought back hard. They are fishing. They have no evidence because there is no evidence. Daniel did not steal anything. He created everything. But the legal battle was taking its toll. Daniel found himself reliving the worst moments of his life. Depositions where Garrett's lawyers asked invasive questions about his finances, his mental health, his fitness as a parent. Did you abuse alcohol while homeless, Mr. Murphy? No, but you were arrested for drunk and disorderly conduct in college. That was 8 years ago. I was 24. It has nothing to do with this case. It speaks to your character. My character is that I protected my infant daughter through homelessness while the man who stole my work built a fortune. If you want to talk about character, let us talk about Richard Garrett's. The depositions were brutal, but Daniel held steady, and Victoria was there for every moment. She attended depositions when she could. She reviewed legal filings. She made sure Daniel knew he was not fighting alone. You are doing great, she told him. After a particularly rough deposition, they are attacking you because they have no defense. The evidence is overwhelming. They are desperate. How much longer? Our attorney says the trial is scheduled for 10 months from now. We are about halfway through discovery. 10 more months. Daniel could do that. He had survived 4 years of hell. He could survive 10 months of legal warfare, especially when he had something he had never had before: a team, a family, people who believed in him. Victoria Grace, his growing network of colleagues at Sterling Biotech who respected his work. He was not alone anymore, and that made all the difference. 12 months after Daniel had accepted Victoria's key in the snow, Sterling Biotech hosted its annual charity gala at the Plaza Hotel. The event raised money for pediatric cancer research and served as a showcase for the company's latest innovations. This year the centerpiece was the Murphy-Sterling diagnostic algorithm. Daniel stood backstage in a custom-tailored tuxedo, reviewing his presentation notes. Grace was in the audience with Victoria, wearing a midnight blue dress that matched Victoria's gown. "You ready?" James Rodriguez asked, appearing at his elbow. "As ready as I will ever be. You are going to be great. This algorithm is revolutionary. Everyone in that room is going to want to invest in you." Daniel took a deep breath. A year ago he had been homeless. Now he was about to present breakthrough technology to some of the wealthiest and most powerful people in medicine and biotech. The irony was not lost on him. "Ladies and gentlemen," the MC announced, "please welcome Sterling Biotech's Chief Technology Officer, Dr. Daniel Murphy." Daniel walked onto the stage to polite applause. He clicked to his first slide, a photo of a young girl smiling despite the hospital gown she wore. "This is Maya Rodriguez. She is 8 years old. 14 months ago, our algorithm identified cellular markers indicating she was developing acute lymphoblastic leukemia. Traditional diagnostics would not have caught it for another 6 months. Because we identified it early, Maya started treatment before she had any symptoms. Today she is in remission. She is alive because mathematics and medicine came together at the right time." The room was silent, attentive. But this is not just about the technology. This is about what happens when people invest in each other, when they look past circumstances and see potential. Daniel clicked to the next slide: the algorithm's accuracy metrics, the clinical trial results, the projected lives saved. The Murphy-Sterling algorithm uses recursive neural networks with adaptive weighting to identify patterns in chaotic biological data. It predicts disease progression with 87% accuracy, 3 to 6 months before traditional diagnostics. In our Phase 2 clinical trials, we have identified over 200 at-risk patients who otherwise would not have been diagnosed until their conditions were critical. He explained the technology in terms the audience could understand, showed visualizations of how the algorithm worked, presented data on cost savings and lives saved. When he finished, the room erupted in applause. During the reception afterward, Daniel was swarmed by investors, hospital administrators, and other biotech CEOs. Everyone wanted to talk about the algorithm. Everyone wanted partnerships. Victoria stood across the room, watching with quiet pride. Then Daniel saw him, Richard Garrett, standing near the bar, talking with a small group, clearly trying to maintain his social status despite the pending lawsuit. Their eyes met across the room. Garrett's expression was complicated: anger, fear, and something that might have been grudging respect. Daniel excused himself from the group he was talking with and walked directly toward Garrett. The room's energy shifted. People noticed. Conversations quieted. Daniel stopped 3 feet away. "Richard." "Daniel." Garrett's voice was tight. "Congratulations on your success." "Thank you. I rebuilt everything you stole, improved it, and put my name on it properly this time." Garrett's companions exchanged uncomfortable glances. "The lawsuit is still pending," Garrett said. "You have not won anything yet." "I have already won. I have my reputation back. I have a career. I have respect. You tried to erase me. You failed." Daniel's voice was quiet, but it carried. "And when the trial happens, when the evidence comes out, everyone in this industry is going to know what you did. Not because I destroyed you, but because you destroyed yourself when you stole work you could not even understand." Garrett's face flushed red. "This is not over." "You are right. It is not. See you in court." Daniel turned and walked away, leaving Garrett standing alone. Victoria appeared at his side. "That was well done." Restrained. "I thought about punching him. Decided it was not worth it." "Growth," Victoria said with a small smile. The rest of the evening was triumph. Daniel networked with people who saw him as successful, brilliant, valuable, not as damaged goods, not as a risk, as someone worth investing in. Near the end of the night, Victoria pulled him aside. "There is something I need to tell you, something urgent." Daniel's stomach dropped. "What is wrong?" "Nothing is wrong, but I received news today, about my brother Thomas. I did not know you had a brother. We have not spoken in 15 years, family drama, but his lawyer contacted me this afternoon. Thomas passed away 4 months ago, pancreatic cancer. I am so sorry." Victoria's eyes were bright with unshed tears. "He had a daughter, 7 years old. Her name is Lily. She has been in foster care since Thomas died. According to his will, I am named as her legal guardian." Daniel absorbed this. "You have a niece you never knew about." "Yes, and she has lost her father. She is alone. And I do not know how to do this. I have never been a parent. Neither had I when Grace was born. But you figure it out because you have to." Victoria looked at him. "I am terrified. What if I fail her the way I failed Thomas?" "Then you do better, starting now." "Where is she?" "Foster facility in White Plains. I am supposed to meet her tomorrow." "Then we are going with you." "Daniel, you do not have to." "Yes, I do. We are family. You were there for me when I had nothing. I am going to be there for you now." Victoria hugged him tightly. "Thank you." That night Daniel tucked Grace into bed and told her, "Tomorrow we are taking a trip. Grandma Tori's niece needs help. We are going to meet her." "Is she nice?" "I do not know yet, baby, but she is family, and we take care of family." Grace nodded seriously. "Okay, Daddy." The next morning they drove to White Plains together. Victoria sat in the back of the car staring out the window, unusually quiet. "Tell me about Thomas," Daniel said gently. Victoria took a breath. "He was 5 years younger than me, creative, kind. He wanted to be a teacher. Our father saw that as weakness. He pushed Thomas to join the family business, to be like me. Thomas refused. They fought constantly. What happened? When our father died, he left everything to me, everything. Thomas got $50,000, a token amount that felt like an insult. Thomas said I had poisoned our father against him. We had a terrible fight. He left. I never saw him again." Her voice cracked. "I was so proud, so stubborn. I told myself he had made his choice, but the truth is I was hurt, and I let my pride keep me from reaching out, and now he is gone. And he has a daughter who lost everything." "You cannot change the past," Daniel said, "but you can change her future. Give her what you have given me in Grace, a home, stability, love. What if I am not capable of that?" "You are. I have watched you with Grace. You are more capable than you know." They arrived at the facility. A social worker named Rebecca Walsh met them. "Miss Sterling, thank you for coming. Lily has been struggling. She has not spoken much since her father died. She is wary of adults, especially women. Can we see her?" "Of course." They were led to a small room with toys and books. Sitting in the corner, clutching a worn stuffed rabbit, was a small girl with dark eyes that held too much knowledge for someone so young. Victoria knelt down slowly, careful to maintain distance. "Lily, my name is Victoria. I was your father's sister, your aunt." Lily's eyes narrowed. "Daddy said he did not have family." The words hit Victoria like a physical blow, but she kept her voice gentle. We had not spoken in a long time. That was my fault, but I am here now, and I would like to take care of you if you will let me. I do not know you. You are right, you do not. But I knew your father when we were young. He was kind. He loved to draw birds. Lily's grip on the rabbit loosened slightly. He still drew birds. We have a whole book of them. Can I see it sometime? Lily hesitated, then nodded. Grace, who had been watching quietly, stepped forward. "Hi, I am Grace. I am 6. How old are you?" 7. "Do you like to draw?" "Daddy says I am a good artist." Lily looked at Grace, then at the coloring books. Grace was holding out. "I like to draw birds, like my dad did. Can you teach me?" Lily's expression softened just slightly. "Okay." While the girls colored together, Daniel and Victoria spoke with the social worker. "The process usually takes several weeks," Rebecca explained. "Home study, background checks, interviews. But given that you are named in the will as guardian, and your background check is clean, we can likely expedite. Lily could be placed with you in 3 to 4 weeks. What does she need?" Victoria asked. "Grief counseling, definitely. Patience, time. She has lost the only parent she has ever known. This will not be easy. Nothing worth doing is easy, Victoria said firmly. She will have everything she needs: time, resources, and a family. Over the next 3 weeks, Victoria visited Lily every other day. She brought art supplies. She told stories about Thomas when he was young, carefully editing out the pain and focusing on the good memories. Slowly Lily began to open up. On the day Lily was officially placed in Victoria's custody, Daniel and Grace were there. Lily walked out of the facility, clutching her rabbit and a backpack containing everything she owned. Grace took her hand. "Do not be scared. Our house is really big, and there is a garden. And Grandma Tori makes the best pancakes." "Does she?" Lily asked quietly. "The absolute best." In the car, Lily sat between Grace and Daniel, looking small and scared. "Lily," Daniel said gently, "I know you are frightened, but I promise you we are going to take care of you, all of us. You are not alone." Lily looked up at him with Thomas's eyes. "Do you promise?" "I promise." And in that moment, Daniel Murphy understood something profound. A year ago he had been the one being promised safety. Now he was the one making the promise. The circle had completed itself. They drove home through light snow, the world turning white and new, and in a mansion that had once been empty, a family was forming. Not through blood, not through obligation, but through choice, through showing up, through love. The integration of Lily into their household was not smooth. She had nightmares. She cried for her father. She locked herself in her room and refused to come out. She flinched at loud noises. She hoarded food in her backpack, terrified of going hungry. Victoria was overwhelmed. "I do not know what to do. She barely talks to me." Daniel, who had been through this with Grace, helped guide her. "Give her time. Give her space. Let her come to you. Trauma does not heal on a schedule." Lily started therapy twice a week. Slowly, over weeks and months, she began to stabilize. Grace helped more than anyone. She treated Lily like the sister she had never had. She included her in games. She showed her favorite places in the house. She never pressured, never demanded. She just showed up. One night 2 months after Lily arrived, Daniel found her standing in Victoria's study, looking at the bookshelves, looking for something. "Daddy used to read to me," Lily said quietly. "Before he got sick, Charlotte's Web was his favorite." Daniel pulled the book from the shelf. "Would you like me to read it to you?" Lily nodded. That night, for the first time since her father died, Lily fell asleep without crying. The breakthrough with Victoria came 3 months after placement. Lily had a panic attack at school. The counselor called Victoria, who dropped everything and arrived within 15 minutes. She found Lily hyperventilating in the nurse's office. "Lily, look at me. Look at my eyes." Lily looked up terrified. "You are safe. You are having a panic attack. It feels scary, but it cannot hurt you. Breathe with me. In for 4 counts, hold for 4, out for 4. Victoria breathed with her, counting steadily until Lily's breathing slowed. "Good. You are doing great. Keep breathing." When Lily had calmed down, Victoria asked gently, "What triggered this?" "Art class. We were supposed to draw our families. I do not have a family anymore." Victoria's heart broke. "Yes, you do. You have me. You have Daniel and Grace. We are your family now. But you are not my dad." "No, I am not. And I will never try to replace him. But I am your aunt, and I choose you, every single day." Lily looked at her with red, swollen eyes. "Do you promise you will not leave?" "I promise. I am not going anywhere." Lily collapsed into her arms, sobbing. Victoria held her tightly, tears streaming down her own face. From that day forward, Lily began to heal. She started drawing again. Birds like her father had taught her. She filled sketchbooks with them. She started talking more, laughing occasionally, joining Grace in her games. She started calling Victoria Aunt Vicky. And Victoria, who had spent 57 years building emotional walls, let a 7-year-old girl dismantle them completely. While Lily was integrating into the family, the lawsuit against Richard Garrett was reaching its critical phase. 18 months after filing, the trial date was set 3 months away. Daniel's legal team had built an overwhelming case. They had Daniel's original code repositories, time-stamped and cryptographically verified. They had testimony from MIT professors, confirming Daniel's graduate work formed the foundation of the algorithm.
They had internal Prometheus Analytics emails showing Garrett taking credit for work he did not do. And they had one devastating piece of evidence, a forensic code analysis showing that Garrett's version of the algorithm was 96% identical to Daniel's original code, including identical variable names, identical commenting structure, and identical bugs that Daniel had later fixed. No two programmers write identical code, the forensic expert explained. Variable naming is like handwriting. Everyone has their own style. The fact that Garrett's code is identical to yours, down to the comments and bugs, proves he copied it directly. But Garrett's team was not surrendering. They brought in their own experts who claimed the similarities were due to industry best practices. They argued that Daniel had stolen the code from Prometheus while employed there. They tried to introduce evidence of Daniel's homeless period as proof of instability. Victoria's attorney shut that down hard. Your Honor, Mr. Murphy's housing situation is irrelevant to the question of who created this algorithm. The defendant is trying to prejudice the jury against a man who was victimized twice, once by theft, once by poverty resulting from that theft. The judge agreed. The defendant's personal circumstances are not admissible. Stick to the facts of the case. In the weeks leading up to trial, Daniel prepared intensively. He rehearsed his testimony. He reviewed every line of code. He prepared to explain complex technical concepts to a jury that likely had no programming background. The stress was enormous. Daniel found himself working 16-hour days again, obsessing over every detail. Victoria noticed, "You are burning out. I cannot afford to make mistakes. This is my one chance. You are not going to lose. The evidence is overwhelming. Garrett has money. Money buys good lawyers create doubt." Victoria sat him down. "Listen to me. You have already won. You have your career back. You have your reputation. You are respected in this industry. Even if we lose the trial, which we will not, you have already proved you are not what Garrett tried to make you. I want him held accountable, and he will be, but do not sacrifice your health for vengeance. Grace needs you. Lily needs you. I need you. Be present for us while fighting this battle. Do not let Garrett take more from you than he already has." Daniel nodded slowly. "You are right. I am getting lost in this. You are. So come have dinner with your family. Read Lily a story. Help Grace with her homework. Live your life. The trial will happen whether you obsess or not." Daniel took her advice. He made sure to have dinner with the family every night. He read to both girls before bed. He attended Grace's school play and Lily's first art show. He let himself live instead of just survive. And strangely, it made him stronger for the trial. When the trial date arrived, Daniel Murphy walked into the courthouse not as a desperate man seeking vindication but as a successful professional seeking justice. There was a difference, and that difference would change everything. The courtroom was packed. Tech journalists filled the back rows, their laptops ready. Industry insiders whispered in the gallery, everyone aware that this case would set precedents affecting the entire sector. At the plaintiff's table sat Daniel Murphy, wearing a perfectly tailored charcoal suit that Victoria had insisted on buying. He looked nothing like the homeless man who had stood in the snow 18 months ago. Flanked by Victoria Sterling's legal team, led by David Patterson, one of the most respected intellectual property attorneys in the country, he projected calm confidence even as his heart hammered in his chest. Across the aisle, Richard Garrett sat with his lawyers, looking every bit the successful tech CEO. He had talked his way out of difficult situations before. He clearly believed he could do it again. Judge Patricia Morrison called the court to order. "This is the case of Murphy versus Garrett and Prometheus Analytics, Incorporated. Mr. Patterson, your opening statement." David Patterson stood, commanding the room with quiet authority. "Your Honor, members of the jury, this case is about theft. Dr. Daniel Murphy spent 18 months creating a revolutionary artificial intelligence algorithm for predictive healthcare diagnostics. He documented every step, every line of code, every iteration." He gestured toward Daniel. Richard Garrett, his supervisor, stole that work. He asked Dr. Murphy to send him the complete documentation, claiming he would present it to executives. Instead, he filed patents under his own name. Then he had Dr. Murphy fired on fabricated charges to cover his tracks. Patterson turned to face the jury. We will prove that Richard Garrett is a fraud. We will show you time-stamped code repositories proving Dr. Murphy created this algorithm. We will show you that Mr. Garrett lacks the technical knowledge to have written even a single line of this code. And we will show you that when Dr. Murphy tried to seek justice, Garrett used his wealth to systematically destroy him. He paused. Dr. Murphy lost everything. His job, his home. He ended up sleeping in shelters with his infant daughter. Meanwhile, Richard Garrett built a $200 million fortune on stolen work. Patterson's voice grew firm. This trial is about whether theft becomes acceptable when the thief wears an expensive suit. We believe the answer is no. He sat down. Rebecca Torres, Garrett's attorney, stood for the defense. She was sharp, polished, and commanding. Your Honor, members of the jury, this is not about theft. This is about a disgruntled former employee who wants to profit from collaborative work. Richard Garrett has been a pioneer in artificial intelligence for 15 years. The algorithm was developed through team effort, with contributions from many engineers including Mr. Murphy. She walked toward the jury. Mr. Murphy was terminated for cause, for attempting to steal proprietary code. He filed this lawsuit 4 years later, only after securing employment with a competitor. This is about revenge and financial gain, not justice. The battle lines were drawn. When court resumed, Patterson called his first witness. The plaintiff calls Dr. Daniel Murphy to the stand. Daniel walked to the witness stand, very aware of every eye tracking his movement. After being sworn in, Patterson began. Dr. Murphy, please tell the jury about your educational background. I graduated summa cum laude from MIT with a degree in computer science and artificial intelligence. I then earned a master's from Stanford in machine learning, focusing on neural network architectures for pattern recognition in chaotic systems. What was your thesis research? I developed a mathematical framework called adaptive meta-pattern recursion. It allows neural networks to identify patterns in data that appears random or chaotic. My thesis advisor called it some of the most innovative work he had seen in a decade. After graduation, what did you do? I was recruited by Prometheus Analytics as a senior software engineer. Richard Garrett was my supervisor. Can you describe the algorithm you developed? Daniel turned slightly toward the jury. The algorithm uses recursive neural network architecture with dynamic adaptive weighting. Traditional diagnostic tools look for specific disease markers. This algorithm looks for meta-patterns, the patterns that indicate disease is beginning before specific markers appear. He leaned forward. Think of weather prediction. You measure temperature, humidity, pressure across hundreds of locations, looking for patterns that indicate a storm is forming before it arrives. My algorithm does the same with biological data. Several jury members nodded, understanding. How long did this development take? 18 months. From January 2019 through June 2020. I worked primarily independently, documenting everything in private code repositories. Patterson displayed screenshots on the courtroom screens. What are we looking at? My GitHub repositories. Every time I wrote or modified code, I committed those changes with a timestamp. Over 3,000 individual commits, all authored by me, all cryptographically verified so the timestamps cannot be altered retroactively. Patterson submitted the logs as evidence. Torres objected, claiming fabrication was possible, but Judge Morrison allowed them in, subject to expert verification. Patterson continued. What happened when you completed the algorithm? Daniel's hands gripped the witness stand slightly tighter. I presented it to my team in June 2020. I demonstrated 82% accuracy in predicting disease progression 3 to 6 months before traditional diagnostics. The response was enthusiastic. Richard Garrett called it revolutionary. He asked me to send him complete access to my private repositories and all documentation. He said he would present it to executives for commercialization. Did you give him access? Yes. I trusted him completely. He was my mentor. I had no reason to doubt him. What happened next? Daniel took a slow breath. 3 weeks later, I was called into an emergency meeting with HR and legal counsel. They terminated me immediately, claiming I had stolen proprietary code from another project. They showed me code snippets allegedly from a different team that were identical to my work. How did you respond? I told them it was impossible, that my repository logs proved I was the original author. They said my logs could have been falsified. I was given 30 minutes to clear my desk and escorted out by security. The courtroom was silent. What happened 2 months later? Daniel's jaw tightened. Richard Garrett filed patent applications for my algorithm, under his name, as sole inventor. Murmurs rippled through the gallery. What did you do? I filed objections with the patent office. I hired an attorney to sue for intellectual property theft. But Garrett hired investigators who dug up every mistake from my past: a college arrest with dropped charges, defaulted student loans. They painted me as unstable and dishonest. My attorney, working on contingency, could not afford to continue. When Garrett's team started filing endless motions, the case was dismissed. During this time, what was happening personally? Daniel's voice cracked. My fiancée Jessica was pregnant. When she learned I had been fired and was being sued, she left. She gave birth to our daughter Grace and handed her to me at the hospital. I never saw her again. Several jury members showed visible shock. What happened after your lawsuit was dismissed? I tried to find tech work, but background checks flagged me as a security risk. No one would hire me. I took manual labor jobs, but it was not enough. I could not afford rent and childcare. We ended up in shelters.
Daniel looked directly at the jury. For 3 years and 9 months I was homeless with my baby daughter. I kept her safe, kept her fed, but I could not give her a home, because I trusted Richard Garrett. Patterson let that sit before continuing. The defense will claim collaborative development. How do you respond? Daniel straightened. I can explain every design decision, derive the mathematics, walk through the code line by line. Richard Garrett cannot do any of those things because the algorithm requires PhD-level expertise he does not have. He has an undergraduate business degree, no technical training, no programming background. He could not write this code if his life depended on it. No further questions. Torres approached for cross-examination. Aggressive and sharp. Dr. Murphy, you were employed by Prometheus using their resources. Correct. I used my personal laptop working evenings and weekends. My repository logs show 87% of commits were outside business hours. You were terminated for attempting to steal code. That was a false accusation to justify my termination after I gave Garrett my work. You have a criminal record. 1 arrest at 24 for drunk and disorderly. Charges dropped. 8 years before Prometheus and irrelevant to this case. You defaulted on student loans, because Garrett had me fired and I had a newborn to support. That was the consequence of his theft, not evidence of poor character. Torres tried multiple angles, mental state, fabricated evidence, greed, but Daniel remained calm and consistent on every question. When she sat down, Victoria could see the jury believed him. Patterson built his case systematically. Dr. Jennifer Walsh, a forensic code analyst from MIT, presented devastating evidence. The two versions are 96.3% identical, she testified. Not just functionality, but structure, variable names, commenting style, and even bugs. That only happens through direct copying. She highlighted specific sections. This variable name, metathard pattern _ delta _ threshold, is extremely idiosyncratic. No two programmers would independently choose this exact name. Yet here it is, identical in both versions. What about bugs? Both contain an identical edge case error. Dr. Murphy's logs show he fixed this bug 6 weeks after initial implementation. Mr. Garrett's version contains the unfixed bug, proving he copied Murphy's code before the fix. Did Richard Garrett independently create this algorithm? Absolutely not. This is unequivocally a direct copy. Torres could not shake the forensic evidence. Professor Martin Garcia from MIT testified next. Daniel Murphy was one of the most brilliant students I have supervised in 30 years. His thesis on adaptive metapattern recursion was groundbreaking. The patented algorithm is clearly an evolution of his graduate research. I would recognize Daniel's work anywhere. Then came the moment everyone anticipated. The defense calls Richard Garrett. Garrett walked to the stand with practiced confidence. Torres asked friendly questions, establishing his background and experience. Then Patterson got his turn. Mr. Garrett, you claim to have invented this algorithm. Did you personally write the code? I provided the strategic vision and conceptual framework. My team handled implementation, but the patents list you as sole inventor, not team leader, inventor. Garrett adjusted in his seat. The concept was mine. The team executed my vision. Patterson walked to a whiteboard. Can you explain the core mathematical principle behind adaptive meta-pattern recursion? It is machine learning that uses neural networks to identify patterns in medical data. That describes all machine learning. What makes your approach unique? The algorithm analyzes multiple data points using advanced statistical methods. Again, that is what all algorithms do. What specifically makes this different? Garrett's confidence showed cracks. It uses more sophisticated pattern recognition. How? What is the mathematical mechanism? It employs neural architectures that handle complex relationships. Patterson picked up a marker. Can you write the equation that defines the adaptive weighting function? Garrett stared at the blank whiteboard. The silence stretched unbearably. Mr. Garrett, I do not have the specific equation memorized. You invented this but cannot remember the fundamental equation. I developed the concept. Mathematical details were handled by my team. Patterson set down the marker. What is your educational background? Bachelor's in Business Administration from NYU. Any computer science courses? Introduction to Programming as an elective. Any mathematics beyond basic calculus? No. Any graduate coursework in machine learning or artificial intelligence? No. Any publications in peer-reviewed journals? No. Any technical certifications? Garrett's face reddened. No. Patterson pulled up repository statistics. Dr. Murphy has over 3,000 documented commits. How many do you have? I did not use GitHub, so you have zero documentation of your development work. My team maintained documentation. You claim you invented an algorithm requiring PhD-level expertise, despite having no training, and you have zero personal documentation. Correct. Correct. But Patterson turned to the judge. I would like to recall Dr. Murphy briefly. Daniel returned. Patterson displayed a code snippet. Dr. Murphy, explain this code. Daniel studied it. This is the adaptive weighting module. It calculates the gradient of the probability distribution across meta-pattern space and adjusts network weights accordingly. The implementation uses modified backpropagation with momentum-based learning rate adjustment. He pointed to specific lines. This calculates partial derivatives. This implements gradient clipping to prevent exploding gradients. This updates weights using stochastic gradient descent with the atom optimizer. Patterson smiled. Clear expert explanation. He turned to Garrett. Would you like to add anything? Silence. Can you explain what gradient clipping is? That is an implementation detail. Can you explain the atom optimizer? I do not recall the terminology. Can you explain anything about how this code functions? Garrett's voice was tight. I hired experts for technical implementation. Patterson turned to the jury, his expression saying everything. No further questions. The contrast was devastating. The jury had watched Daniel explain complex concepts with precision, while Garrett could not explain his own supposed invention. After 3 weeks of testimony, closing arguments came. Patterson addressed the jury one final time. You have seen overwhelming evidence. Dr. Murphy's time-stamped repositories. Forensic analysis proving Garrett's version is a 96% copy. You watched Murphy explain his algorithm with expertise and Garrett unable to explain the invention he claims. He walked to the jury box. But this is about more than evidence. It is about justice. Daniel Murphy trusted his supervisor and was repaid with theft and destruction. He lost everything while Richard Garrett built a fortune. His voice grew intimate. You have the power to correct this. Award Murphy his patents. Award compensation for years of suffering. Send a message that theft will not be tolerated, no matter how expensive the suit, no matter how powerful the thief. He paused. Daniel Murphy has waited 4 years. Give him justice. Torres presented the defense's argument, but her words rang hollow. The jury deliberated for 8 hours. When they returned, Daniel sat with Victoria's hand on his shoulder, his heart hammering. Has the jury reached a verdict? We have, Your Honor. On intellectual property theft, we find in favor of the plaintiff Daniel Murphy. Daniel's breath stopped. On fraudulent patent filing, in favor of the plaintiff. On defamation, in favor of the plaintiff. The courtroom erupted. Garrett sat frozen, ashen. After deliberating on damages, the jury returned. We award $11 million in compensatory damages and $15 million in punitive damages. We recommend all patents be transferred to Daniel Murphy. $26 million. His patents restored, his name cleared. Judge Morrison adopted the recommendation. All patents are transferred to Dr. Murphy, effective immediately. Mr. Garrett will pay the awarded damages. I am referring this to the U.S. Attorney for potential criminal charges. The gavel fell. Daniel could not move, could not process. Then Victoria pulled him into a fierce hug. You won. It is over. Daniel held on to her and broke down completely, 4 years of pain pouring out. He had won. Not just money, not just patents, the truth. Outside microphones surrounded them. Daniel stood at the podium with Victoria beside him. 4 years ago Richard Garrett stole my work and tried to destroy my life. But he failed to take the most important thing, the truth. This verdict is for every innovator who has been stolen from. Today proved justice still exists. A reporter called out, "What will you do with the money?" Daniel smiled. "First I am going home to my daughter. The money will help, but the real victory is standing here with my name cleared." Victoria stepped forward. When Daniel came to Sterling Biotech, many would have seen only a homeless man. I saw a brilliant engineer who had been wronged. Today proves I was right. She put her arm around Daniel. To anyone who has been knocked down, look at Daniel Murphy. He lost everything and built it back stronger. You can do the same. That evening, Daniel picked up Grace and Lily. He knelt and pulled both girls into his arms. Daddy won. The truth won. Grace, 11 now, hugged him tightly. I always knew you would win. Lily smiled up at him. Does this mean the bad man cannot hurt us anymore? He can never hurt us again. We are safe. We are together. They went home to Victoria's, where she waited with sparkling cider and joy. To justice, Victoria toasted. To family, Daniel replied. To the people who believed in me when I had nothing. They drank as snow began to fall outside, gentle and peaceful. Daniel Murphy had been destroyed, discarded, declared finished. He had proved the world catastrophically wrong, not through revenge, but through resilience. Not alone, but surrounded by people who chose to believe in him. Justice had come, and it was sweeter than he had ever imagined. 6 months after the trial, life had settled into a comfortable rhythm. Daniel's settlement money had been invested wisely. The patents for the Murphy-Sterling algorithm had been transferred to him, and Sterling Biotech had licensed them exclusively for a substantial royalty agreement. The algorithm had passed Phase 2 clinical trials with extraordinary results, 89% accuracy in predicting disease progression 3 to 6 months before traditional diagnostics. Grace was thriving in 2nd grade. Lily had come out of her shell dramatically. She was participating in art competitions and winning. Her bird drawings were becoming locally recognized. Victoria had officially adopted both girls. The paperwork had been finalized a month ago. Grace Murphy Sterling and Lily Sterling were now legally her granddaughters. Daniel had purchased a brownstone 3 blocks from Victoria's mansion, close enough to maintain the family connection, far enough to establish healthy independence. But most nights they still had dinner together at Victoria's house. Everything was perfect. Then on a Tuesday morning in month 23, everything went catastrophically wrong. Daniel was in a meeting with the Sterling Biotech executive team when his phone exploded with security alerts. His face went white as he read the notifications. "Victoria, we have a major problem. Someone is inside our network. Right now, they are extracting research data and algorithm code." The room froze. "How is that possible?" James Rodriguez demanded. "We have military-grade security. You designed it yourself." Daniel's fingers flew across his laptop keyboard. "This is not a random attack. This is sophisticated, professional. They are using credentials that were authorized 6 months ago before we upgraded the security infrastructure. An inside job, or someone who had inside access previously." Daniel's expression darkened as he traced the intrusion. The breach originated from Prometheus Analytics network infrastructure. Victoria's voice went cold. "Garrett. He is in prison awaiting trial for fraud and perjury. But his company is still operational, and someone there just launched a coordinated attack on our systems." Daniel worked frantically, typing commands, building firewalls, isolating segments of the network. "I have locked them out of the patient database. They got approximately 40% of the algorithm code and 30% of our clinical trial data before I could block them. Dr. Kim's face went pale. 40% is enough for them to reverse engineer the rest. They could build a competing product. Not if I am smarter than they are. Daniel stood abruptly. Everyone out except Victoria and James. I need complete focus. The room cleared instantly. What do you need? Victoria asked. 8 hours, no interruptions, coffee, and I am going to need our legal team ready to file an emergency injunction. Against who? Daniel's expression was grim. I need to trace this all the way to the source first, but I have a theory. He dove into the code, his fingers moving with practiced precision. Victoria and James watched as lines of text scrolled past, incomprehensible to them, but clearly meaningful to Daniel. 2 hours in, Daniel leaned back with a bitter laugh. I know who did this. Who? Marcus Hartley, former Prometheus Analytics IT contractor. He was fired 8 months ago for security violations, but he kept backdoor access to their systems, and someone hired him to use those backdoors to attack us. Can you prove it? I am looking at his digital fingerprints all over this intrusion. Chat logs, payment records, the whole conspiracy. Daniel pulled up a series of communications. Hartley was hired by a shell company called Tech Venture Solutions. That company is owned by Jeffrey Winters. Who is that? Richard Garrett's former VP of Technology. The man who stood to gain the most from Garrett's patents. The man who probably helped Garrett steal from me in the first place. Victoria's eyes hardened. So Winters is trying to steal the algorithm again, to sell it to Prometheus's competitors. Exactly. But I am going to do something Winters will not expect. What? Daniel smiled coldly. I am going to give him exactly what he wants. Over the next 6 hours, Daniel did something brilliant and terrifying. He identified every piece of data that had been stolen. Then he created a modified version of the algorithm code, one that looked identical to the real thing, but contained subtle critical flaws. The algorithm will run, Daniel explained. It will produce results, but those results will be wrong by approximately 3%. In a medical diagnostic context, 3% error rate is catastrophic. You are poisoning the data, James said with dawning realization. I am ensuring that if they use what they stole they will fail, publicly, spectacularly, and we will have irrefutable proof they stole from us. Wisses is inulested bin dated, didors inulested date. Daniel also embedded tracking code, invisible markers that would phone home every time the stolen algorithm was run, giving Sterling Biotech complete documentation of the theft. Now we wait for them to implement it, Daniel said, and when they do we bury them. Victoria called her legal team. I need an emergency brief filed with the FBI, corporate espionage. I want federal agents involved. By that evening Daniel had compiled a complete dossier, server logs, proving the intrusion, chat records between Hartley and Winters, payment records showing money flowing from Tech Venture Solutions to Hartley, and forensic evidence of the stolen data. The FBI opened an investigation immediately. 2 weeks later federal agents arrested Marcus Hartley at his apartment in Brooklyn. His computers contained everything: the stolen code, communications with Winters, and evidence of previous corporate espionage operations. Hartley, facing 20 years in federal prison, turned state's evidence. He provided detailed testimony about Jeffrey Winters' operation, including the names of pharmaceutical companies Winters had tried to sell the stolen algorithm to. 1 month after the breach, federal agents arrested Jeffrey Winters at his office in Boston, and 3 months after that, Prometheus Analytics filed for bankruptcy. The company Garrett had built on stolen work collapsed entirely. The news spread through the tech industry like wildfire. Richard Garrett, already in prison, saw his remaining assets seized. The empire built on theft crumbled to dust, and Daniel Murphy, the man Garrett had tried to destroy, stood victorious. But the crisis had taken its toll on Daniel. For 3 weeks after the breach, he had worked 18-hour days, obsessively reviewing security, implementing new protocols, hunting for any remaining vulnerabilities. He stopped sleeping properly, stopped eating regular meals, stopped being present for Grace and Lily. Victoria found him in his office at 2 in the morning, staring at security logs, his eyes bloodshot. Daniel, you need to stop. I cannot.
What if there is another vulnerability? What if someone else gets in? There will always be vulnerabilities. You cannot protect against every possible threat. I have to try. I cannot let them take this from us again. Victoria sat down across from him. You are not in survival mode anymore. You won. Garrett is in prison. Winters is in prison. Prometheus is bankrupt. There is no one left to fight. There is always someone else. The world is full of people like Garrett. Yes, and you cannot fight them all. You have to live your life. Daniel's hands were shaking. What if I fail? What if I miss something and it costs us everything? Then we rebuild, like we did before. But Daniel, you are sacrificing your present to guard against a hypothetical future. Grace and Lily need you now, not your anxiety, not your hypervigilance. You. Daniel broke down. The stress, the fear, the trauma of nearly losing everything again, it all came pouring out. Victoria held him while he cried. You are safe. We are safe. The girls are safe. I promise. How can you promise that? Because we are strong. Because we are together. And because you built something that cannot be taken away. Not the algorithm but this family. No one can steal that. Daniel let himself be held. Let himself be vulnerable. Let himself trust that maybe, just maybe, safety could last. Dr. Morrison, his therapist, helped him work through the trauma response. You experienced a breach. Your nervous system interpreted it as existential threat. But Daniel, you handled it. You stopped the attack. You caught the perpetrators. You did everything right. It does not feel like I did everything right. Because your brain is still waiting for the other shoe to drop. That is trauma. But you can train your brain to recognize safety. It takes time and practice. Over the next several months, Daniel slowly recovered. He reinstated family dinners. He read to the girls every night. He took weekends completely off work. He learned to trust that the security systems he had built would work. That he did not have to monitor everything personally. That delegating was not the same as failing. And slowly the nightmares stopped. The hypervigilance faded. The constant sense of impending disaster quieted. Daniel Murphy learned to live in peace. 2 years after the trial, Sterling Biotech held a gala celebrating a major milestone. The Murphy-Sterling diagnostic algorithm had received full FDA approval and was being implemented in hospitals across the country. In the first 18 months of deployment, it had identified over 5,000 at-risk patients. Early interventions based on the algorithm's predictions had saved an estimated 1,200 lives. Daniel stood on stage in front of 700 people, investors, hospital administrators, medical professionals. 2 years ago, I stood in a courtroom fighting for my right to be recognized as the creator of this technology, he began. Today I stand here watching it save lives. That is all I ever wanted. He clicked to a photo of a young girl smiling in a hospital gown. This is Maya Rodriguez. She is 9 years old now. Because our algorithm identified leukemia markers 6 months before symptoms appeared, she started treatment early. She is thriving. Another photo, an older man. This is Robert Martin, 72. Our algorithm identified markers for pancreatic cancer 9 months before traditional diagnostics would have caught it. Early surgery saved his life. Photo after photo, face after face, lives saved. This algorithm represents thousands of hours of work. Brilliant contributions from Dr. Sarah Kim and her medical team. Exceptional engineering from James Rodriguez and the tech team. Strategic vision from Victoria Sterling. He looked directly at Victoria, who sat in the front row with Grace and Lily. But more than that, it represents what happens when people invest in each other. When they look past circumstances and see potential. When they choose to believe in redemption. His voice grew stronger. 4 years ago, I was sleeping in shelters with my infant daughter. I had been robbed of my work, my reputation, my livelihood. I thought my life was over. Then a woman I had never met gave me a key to her house because my daughter blew her a kiss in the snow. She gave me shelter. Then she gave me opportunity. Then she gave me family. Daniel gestured to Victoria, who stood and joined him on stage. Victoria Sterling did not save me. She invested in me. She gave me the platform to save myself. And together we built something that matters. Not just a company, not just an algorithm, but a family. And proof that talent can overcome theft. That truth can overcome lies. That kindness can change everything. The audience erupted in applause. After the gala, Daniel found Victoria on the balcony of the venue, looking out at the city. "Thank you," he said simply. "For what?" "For seeing me when I was invisible, for believing in me when I did not believe in myself, for giving me a chance to be more than my worst moment." Victoria smiled. "You gave me something too." "What?" "A reason to come home. For 57 years I built an empire. But I was empty. You and Grace and Lily filled that emptiness. You showed me that success is not about what you build alone. It is about who you build it with." Daniel put his arm around her shoulders. "We make a good team, the best." Inside, Grace and Lily were showing off their formal dresses to anyone who would look. Grace was 11 now, Lily was 9. Both brilliant, both thriving, both secure in a family that had been built by choice. Daniel watched them through the window, and felt something settle in his chest, something that had been unsettled for years. Peace. He had fought for his work, won his patents, built a career, saved lives. But the real victory was not the algorithm or the money or the recognition. The real victory was those two girls laughing together, safe and loved. That was everything. 5 years after the trial, Daniel Murphy stood on a stage in San Francisco, accepting Innovator of the Year at the Technology Innovation Awards for the 4th generation of the Murphy-Sterling diagnostic algorithm. The algorithm now reached 93% accuracy and had been implemented in over 3,000 hospitals worldwide. In 5 years it had helped save more than 50,000 lives. In the audience, Victoria sat between Grace and Lily, now 16 and 14. Grace was exploring computer science programs at MIT and Stanford, drawn to the same intersection of technology and ethics that had defined her father's work. Lily's artwork had been featured in 2 New York galleries, and several elite art schools were already courting her. Daniel ended his speech with words he had refined over years of telling his story. Innovation isn't about being the smartest person in the room. It's about being the most determined, about refusing to let setbacks define you, and about remembering that the greatest breakthroughs don't come from people working alone, but from people who choose to build something together. He looked at his family. 5 years ago, I won a lawsuit that restored my patents and my reputation. But I won something more important that day. Proof that resilience matters, that truth matters, and that a single act of kindness can change everything. The room rose in applause. Afterward, a young black woman approached him, clearly nervous. "Dr. Murphy, I'm Jasmine Williams. I was fired for whistleblowing on safety violations in my company's medical device software. I've been blacklisted. No one will hire me. I saw your story and thought, maybe you'd understand." Daniel scanned her resume. Excellent credentials, strong experience, integrity written between every line. "Can you start Monday?" he asked. Her eyes widened. "What?" "I need a senior quality assurance engineer. Someone who prioritizes patient safety over corporate politics." "That's you." Tears filled her eyes. "Yes, thank you." "Don't thank me," Daniel said. "Do good work, and when you're in my position someday, remember this moment. Then give someone else a chance." As Jasmine walked away, transformed from defeated to hopeful, Victoria stepped beside him. "You just did for her what I did for you. That's the point," Daniel said. "This is how systems change, one person at a time." That evening they gathered for dinner at Victoria's mansion, the house where everything had begun. The table was full. Daniel, Victoria, Grace, Lily, James Rodriguez and his wife, Dr. Sarah Kim, and her husband. Family chosen and earned. Victoria stood lifting her glass. 5 years ago a little girl blew me a kiss in a snowstorm. I stopped my car and handed a stranger my house key. She looked at Daniel. That stranger became the best investment I ever made. Not just in technology but in my life. Daniel didn't just change our company. He gave me something I didn't know I was missing. A family. A reason to come home. To Daniel Murphy, she said. Proof that resilience beats theft, and kindness creates miracles. To family, Daniel added, not blood, choice. They drank. Later Daniel found Lily in the garden, sketching birds as dusk settled. These are beautiful, he said. I'm entering this one in a competition, she replied. Your dad would be proud. She smiled softly. Do you think he knew Aunt Vicky would take care of me? I think he hoped, Daniel said. And that hope mattered. She hesitated. When you and Grace were homeless, were you scared? Daniel didn't lie. Every day. Terrified I'd fail her. But you didn't. No. Because we met someone who chose to help. Do you ever worry it'll fall apart? Sometimes. Trauma teaches you that safety is temporary, but you've been safe for 5 years now. That's not luck anymore. That's real. Inside, Grace was helping Victoria with dessert. Grandma Tori, Grace asked, do you ever regret giving Daddy that key? Victoria considered. I assessed risk. Your father was protecting you, not broken, just struggling. I trusted my instinct, but it could have gone wrong. Yes, but my biggest regret in life was not taking enough risks on people. Your father was the first decision I made in decades based on instinct instead of fear, and it was the best one. That night, after everyone had gone home, Daniel and Victoria sat in the study. 5 years, Daniel said. Feels like a lifetime. You've come far from the man in the snow, Victoria said. I learned that accepting help isn't weakness. They spoke of Richard Garrett, now disgraced, imprisoned. Does it still satisfy you? Victoria asked. No, Daniel admitted. Justice mattered, but revenge is empty. The real victory was building this. He pulled out a folder. I want to start a foundation, legal and financial support for engineers whose work is stolen. No one should go through what I did. Victoria smiled. Sterling Biotech will fund it. Later she asked, are you happy? Yes, Daniel said simply. For the first time I truly am. We built it, Victoria said. Together. Outside, snow began to fall again. 5 years earlier, a little girl had blown a kiss through a car window. That single moment of innocent kindness had saved lives, restored justice, and built a family. Daniel Murphy had lost everything, and gained something greater. Not revenge, not recognition, but belonging. And that made all the difference.
Join us to share meaningful stories by hitting the like and subscribe buttons. Don't forget to turn on the notification bell to start your day with profound lessons and heartfelt empathy.